Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 27th episode of your new favorite internet show, Visioncon Live. I'm your host, Zach Wilson, but you didn't come here to see me today. You came to see the man of the hour. He's Boto from Ghost in the Shell standalone complex, Ansem from the Kingdom Hearts franchise, Joker from the Injustice series, just to name a few. He's the legendary award-winning thespian himself, the one, the only Richard Epcar. Richard, how you doing today?
Hi, everybody. I'm doing great. How you doing?
I'm doing dandy as candy. Now, Richard, before we begin, I want to make something completely clear. Been a huge fan of you ever since Ghost in the Shell when I was a wee lad. But me reaching out to you and having you on the show, I don't know if you want to call it divine intervention or just coincidence to the nth degree, but a lot of people who know me know I'm not the most graceful of people. So I was walking in my room, and I slipped on my box set of Ghost in the Shell standalone complex. That's why it's like all ripped now. But when I got up and I looked at it, and I was like, you know what? What's Boto doing nowadays? So I reached out to you, and here we are. Now, Richard, the first question I want to ask you is, like I said, award-winning, legendary thespian in your field. But I wanted to ask, how do we get here? Was this always the plan, or did just kind of one thing lead to another?
No, it wasn't the plan. I kind of fell into this, to be honest with you. I'm an actor, trained on the stage, and did when I came out to LA, I did a lot of soaps and television and some films. And it was actually my wife, Ellen Stern, who kind of got me into all this mishigas. She kind of she was doing a small, kind of a movie for some people, and they had another film that they had shot already, but they didn't like any of the actors in it, so they wanted to replace everyone's voice. And so they asked her if she wanted to audition for it, and she said, yeah, and can I bring my boyfriend, who was me at the time? And she brought me to this thing, and the guy said, have you ever done this before? It was dubbing. Basically, you're replacing the dialogue that's on something. And I said, oh yeah, I've done it a million times. I never did it before in my life. But I'm also a drummer, and there's a lot of rhythm to dubbing, actually. So I was an actor and a drummer, and the combination of the two worked out really well for dubbing. And from that, I got a lot more work from them. And then from that, I got cast into a little show called Robotech back in the day. It was way back in the 80s, before a lot of your listeners were born, probably. And we did this show called Robotech, and it was a crazy little show. We didn't think anything was going to happen with it. We recorded like 2-3 o'clock in the morning. It was insane. And the show went on network television and blew up. And to this day, I still have fans from Robotech approaching me, and and that's how I got started. And I have never stopped working since that. And now I've done over 600 characters in games, animation, and anime. You mentioned a few of them. There's a couple of other ones I want to mention real quick too. Raiden in Mortal Kombat, one of my all-time favorite characters. Akuma in Street Fighter V, I'm doing him now. And Joseph Joestar and JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. There's a lot of them. Jigen. We can't leave out Lupin the Third, which is huge now. And they're just going to be releasing Lupin the Third, the First, which is a CGI movie that's just phenomenal. And I was really happy we got and I was the one that put the original cast together about 13 years ago for the Red Jacket series, which I directed. So I put that cast together, and we've been very fortunate in being able to do the majority of the Lupin properties with this cast. So that's been very cool.
Well, you actually unknowingly perfectly segued my way to a couple of characters that we're actually going to talk about. Now, you mentioned one with a series that is massively popular that I just recently kind of got on board with, because at first I kind of wrote off the series as just kind of not my thing. But when I kind of gave it a shot, as with most things, I was completely wrong. That, of course, is JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Now, you play old Joseph Joestar. Kind of, how did you get into that series and voice such an incredible character?
It was an amazing character, and that was really a crazy ride for that show, because I don't even remember how long ago it was, maybe 5 years, something like that, 5 or 6 years ago. They approached me to do, this was kind of nice. I tell people that I can count on one hand the times that I've been actually cast without auditioning. And as I said, I've done over 600 characters, so it's kind of it's always fun. I think this was one of those times where they cast me to do this character. And what happened with that was originally they wanted an English accent for these characters. So I think we did 3 episodes with the English accent, and then we didn't hear anything about it. And I thought, well, okay, that happens a lot. You go and you do shows, they fall apart, they don't happen, they don't materialize. And then later on, I can't remember, a couple, 2, 3 years after we did that thing, they contacted me to come and do some more. So we did some more, not a lot. I think we did like 3 again. And then a couple years after that, they called me to go do a convention in Chicago, and it was at the time it was owned by Warner Brothers in Tokyo. I guess they owned the show. Not anymore, but anyway, they asked me out of everyone to come and host the 3 episodes to an incredible giant crowd of people that were totally loving the show. And I think they realized that they had a hit on their hands, so they started cranking it out. And I do a lot of these shows, and I don't really have a lot of time to watch them. Sure. But this show was so insane, and I do my part, and I'd go, oh my God, how are they going to get out of this? And I actually, it's one of the shows I actually watched the whole series because I just thought this is such a crazy, fun show. So yeah, so that's what happened. And it's really, he's one of my favorite characters. He's just so out there and boisterous, and he's got flaws, and he's just a lot of fun to play. And I've really enjoyed being part of that show.
Sure. I mean, I'll admit, at first the animation style was a little jarring to me, but I'm very glad I gave this show a shot because, like you said, I mean, yeah, these dynamic characters, your character in specific, definitely has these flaws, but if anything, it makes these characters more approachable and more relatable as well.
Yeah.
Now, I did want to talk about another character that I really hope nobody can relate to. That is, of course, Joker from the Injustice series. Now, I'll be honest, when, obviously I approached you initially because I was a ginormous fan of Boto from Ghost in the Shell. Yeah. But I wanted to research all the other characters you did. And if you told me before I did research that you also voiced Joker from the Injustice series, because Boto and Joker sound nothing alike, no. I wouldn't have believed you. So kind of how did you get that role? And I did also want to ask in specific, how do you nail down such a perfect Joker voice, which, as time has told, is a very hard character to embody?
He is, it's interesting that you said that about not liking him or whatever, but because he is like, it's so bizarre to me. He's like one of the most beloved characters I do. People go nuts over the Joker, and he really is a despicable character. He's a horrible, terrible character. Which makes it really nice that I play Raiden too for those guys, because Raiden is really noble and honorable, and the Joker is the complete opposite of that. So it's really kind of fun, and it's particularly fun when they have us fighting against each other, and I get to talk to myself. But that particular, that whole thing, how I got Joker and Raiden, which I've been doing now for 13 years actually, starting with Mortal Kombat versus DC Universe. They brought me in. Bridget Berdine, rest her soul, was a lovely, lovely casting director who was very supportive of me and brought me in for this audition one day. And it was for Mortal Kombat versus DC Universe. And they had Warner Brothers on the line, and they had DC Comics on the line. And they had everybody, and I'm sure NetherRealm was on there as well. They had everybody, do all the, well, I don't know if they had everybody, but they had me do all of the characters from Mortal Kombat. And then they had me do all the characters from DC. So it was really like being a kid in a candy shop, because, I read all these comics when I was a kid, and I loved all these characters. And I got to audition for Batman and Superman and all these incredible characters. It was just really a blast. But for some reason, when it came to do the Joker, and I'd never ever tried to do the Joker, this voice just came out of me, and the laugh and everything. It was just almost like an out-of-body experience. And at the end of the session, Bridget pulled me aside and she said, "That was great. They love you for everything." And
Surprise.
she said, but what would you like to do if you could choose? Because they never ask the actor, and they don't give a crap what the actor thinks.
Sure.
It's usually the producers or directors that decide who's going to play what. But I said, well, as long as you're asking me, I'd love to do the Joker. It was like so much fun, and what an iconic character he really is.
Mm.
And I said, and Raiden was just phenomenal. I love playing those two characters. They were my two favorites out of the whole batch. And sure enough, and 3-4 days later, they called me and said, you booked both those characters. So, and it's funny, you mentioned that I don't sound anything like the Joker because, initially when they released the word that I was going to be playing the Joker, everyone thought like you. Is he going to do it in his Boto voice? That's not going to work. And it's like, no, I'm not going to do it like Boto. Boto is a different character. So to this day, I have people at NetherRealm Studios who do the Injustice series and Mortal Kombat, which Joker is also a big guest star in Mortal Kombat 11. He's a big character in that. They still don't believe to this day that the same guy does those two voices. So I have to. One of these days, I'm going to show up in Chicago and go to their headquarters, and I'll have to do the two voices for them so they can realize it's just one guy doing both of those voices.
Just so they let you into the door.
Yeah, and you know what? Honestly, I'm so honored and proud to be part of that Mortal Kombat universe and Injustice. It's such a cool group, and they're just the writing and everything they do, the writing and directing on their games it's just phenomenal. So to be part of that is just really, really a great honor for me.
I mean, they're definitely a very devoted and passionate fan base, that's for sure. Now, guys, before we continue, since we're approaching the halfway point, I did want to mention a lot of you have already either messaged Visioncon directly if you're watching this live on Facebook, or put your questions or comments in the comments section in the live feed. But if you haven't already, make sure you guys do that, because towards the end, we're going to open it up to viewers' comments and questions, guys. And of course, these are being monitored and collected by the one and only Marissa Pence. Marissa, always the wind beneath my sails. But with that said, let's keep it going we're kind of ride the bad guy train here for one more stop, because I want to talk about Ansem. Now,
okay. Before we do that, I just wanted to comment on your T-shirt.
Absolutely.
One of the greatest honors of my life was I did 2 or 3 different Star Wars games, and I played about 40 different characters, and I'm trying to remember the names of them. One was something with the Empire, and one was, oh my goodness, it's hard when you have over 600 to remember.
Oh, I bet.
But there's another one. Oh my goodness, why can't I remember it? But they were all part of the Star Wars world. And for me, it was just such a huge, huge honor to be part of those games. Good for me, it was like being a little kid, and in a candy store.
Oh,
so that was very cool.
I bet. I mean, I will say we'll get a little off topic here, but when I was looking down, your list of characters that you voiced throughout the years, because I wanted to pick a few to kind of fit this hour time limit, but also, to get all the fandoms possible. And I was like, 600 characters. How am I going to do this?
I know. Old Republic, that was one of them.
That's what it was. Okay.
Yeah, and then there was another one, something the Empire.
Something Empire. There it is.
Something the Empire. I love that show.
If you guys know about what game he's talking about, just go ahead and leave it in the comments.
Usually, it's funny. The fans know more than I do about this stuff. We'll go to conventions, and they'll name all the characters I did in this thing I did like 20 years ago. I mean, it's unbelievable. They're incredible.
Oh yeah, I was a part of that. But yeah, going to Ansem, Kingdom Hearts. Honestly, you could kind of debate this, but I would say it's an easy argument to make that Kingdom Hearts is definitely one of the biggest franchises that pulled the JRPG kind of genre of games, which back then was a little bit of a niche genre, to the forefront and popularity it is today. So, and you voiced one of the main antagonists. So, kind of, how was it being Ansem, one of the most beloved villains in JRPGs really ever?
It's incredible, and I had no idea how popular this game was. When I think at the time, I've done. Billy Zane created the character. He did the first Kingdom Hearts. But after that, I did 8 more of them. So I've been Ansem in 8 of them. And I didn't realize how popular this game was until I went to another convention in Chicago, and I had this young lady approach me, and she said, "Hey, we're doing a Kingdom Hearts panel. Can you come and just say hi?" I said, "Well, what time is your panel?" And she said, "It's at midnight." I said, "Midnight?" I said, "Well, let me see if I'm even awake by then." And I was laying in bed that night, and I looked over at the clock, and it was midnight, and I was wide awake. I said, "Okay, why not?" So I called my handler. I said, "Can you get me to this panel?" So we had to, most of the stuff was closed up, so we had to walk around. It was like in the dark. It was like a crazy thing, and I expected there to be like 20, maybe 30 people at this thing. I get in there. There must have been like, I don't know how many, maybe 3, 4, 5,000 people crammed into this space. And when I walked in, they said, "Hey, it's Richard Epcar, the voice of Ansem." They went nuts. I mean, it was like the Beatles walked in the room. I mean, it was just insane, and I couldn't believe it. And I said hi, and I said a couple of lines from the game, and they went nuts. And then I said I gotta go, but nobody would let me out because they all wanted autographs. So it took me like an hour or two to get out of there, just signing the autographs on my way out to the door. So I thought, oh my goodness, this is really, I had no idea it was that popular, because I was brought in. This is kind of a funny story. If we got time, I'll tell it real quick. I was brought in. The reason that I was cast, this is another one of those instances where I got cast without auditioning. The reason I got the part of Ansem was that the guy who does the voice of Ansem in Japan is the voice of Bato.
Really?
So the Japanese producers said to the American producers, who are Disney, they said, "Who is the voice of Bato in America?" And they said, "Richard Epcar." So they said, "Hire him." So I got hired, and I came in. So I didn't know anything about the game. I didn't audition for it. I didn't know anything about it. And I went in there, and the first day I go in to record, there was 6 Japanese producers, and then there were 6 people from Disney in the booth. And I would do a line, and the engineer would come on the talk back and say, "Just a minute." And they would talk amongst themselves for like 5 minutes, and they'd come back on and say, "Could you do that line a little slower?" So I do the line a little slower. The engineer would come on the talk back and say, "Just a minute." And they would talk amongst themselves for 5, 10 minutes and come back and say, "Can you do that line a little faster?" And this went on like all day long. And we finally had a break, and I pulled the engineer aside. I said, "How did Christopher Lee put up with this?" And he said, "Oh, they did it to him once." And he said, "All right, I'm going to tell you how we're going to do this. I'm going to read this script from the top to the bottom, and then I'm going home." I thought, how cool is that? But, he was Christopher Lee. So.
Oh my God. Well, we've got time for probably about one more character to dive into before we move on. Yeah. But, we've mentioned him multiple times in this interview. You all know it was coming. I want to talk about Boto.
Okay. Yeah. He's great.
Oh my gosh. Boto, obviously from the Ghost of the Shell standalone complex series, one of the, at least my favorite characters of all time. Kind of, obviously you kind of mentioned a little bit kind of what Boto meant for your career, but, I kind of want to dive a little deeper. Kind of, how did you get to be Boto, and, what does Boto mean to you, both in a business sense, but also just kind of, a metaphorical and sentimental sense?
Bato is definitely one of my favorite characters, and I really relate to him. And he has a very dry sense of humor, which I like. He doesn't take any crap from anybody, which I admire. I really admire that about him. And he's a very honorable guy. Once again, he's got a really good heart. And and I kind of gravitate towards those characters in many ways. And he's just, he's a force of nature. He really is. It's funny. I auditioned and got the role for the first Ghost in the Shell movie, and then and I loved it. I had never seen anything like that. As a matter of fact, I just did a thing for Lionsgate where I do the audio side talk when you're watching the movie, so you can hear me making comments about stuff. If you want to check it out, they just released it from Lionsgate. It's the original Ghost in the Shell movie. And anyway, about 3 years later or so, they contacted me and said, "Hey, we're doing a Ghost in the Shell series." And I thought, oh, great. I'm sure, they're going to cast me and all that. So they said, yeah, we'd like you to come in and audition. I said, you want me to audition? They said, yeah. I said, oh, okay. So I went in and auditioned, and there was about 200 different guys in there auditioning for Boto. And I got the part, and it's probably because I sounded like the guy in the movie.
Just a little bit.
But the thing is, they only really brought back me and William Knight, who plays Aramaki. We were the only two that they brought back from the movie. The rest of the people they replaced. So I felt very, very fortunate to be included in that. And then I love doing the series. It was really fun. As I say, Bato really is one of my favorite characters. And then to be able to do this new one that's on Netflix right now, 2045, it was a SAC Ghost in the Shell. And if you go to Netflix, you can watch it, and it's a new CGI series. It looks amazing, and it's an incredible show, and it's got a real great ending, because you don't know what happens, and I don't want to be a spoiler, but check it out, and I'm fairly sure that there'll be more of that. I hope so, anyway. But it's always fun to play Bato and get into that character, because I feel a real simpatico with him.
Sure. I will say the original series always will have a fond place in my heart. But guys, if you have Netflix, definitely check out the new series. It's amazing. But
it looks great, dude, doesn't it?
Oh my God. It looks great. You guys always do phenomenal work. But the fact that also it's got updated, graphics and animation, the CGI really plays well since it's a very action-heavy series.
I think so too. Yeah.
I could not scream its accolades enough. But I did want to say, before we go into the plug zone and viewers' comments and questions, one last question. Now, a lot of people who watch the show obviously are here to meet and see the wonderful guests that we have on. But yeah. I've noticed a lot of people also are people
here just to see your hair myself.
Well, you. But I've wanted to. They're either interested in getting into acting and voice acting, or already are, and then just kind of need to know what next. So my last question before we get to the plug zone, Richard Epcar, is: let's pretend I am the physical embodiment of everybody watching right now that either is looking to get into voice acting and acting, or already is and just need to know what to do next. What advice would you give me?
Go to medical school.
Medical school, okay.
I'm just teasing. No, it can be a very tough business to make a living at, to be honest with you. But and I've been very fortunate and very blessed. I think that if you are someone that really wants to do it, there's no reason why you can't do it. I think the main thing people don't realize is that when we go into booths, particularly for games and animation, a lot of times when it's a dubbing job, original animation, you'll get the script ahead of time. But if you're doing a dubbing job or you're doing a game, you never get to see the script until you're actually in the booth. So you basically have to cold read a performance. And this is the thing that tricks up a lot of people, even celebrities. A lot of them aren't very good at it. So my advice to somebody who really wants to do what I do is to, if you're not that good at it, read out loud every single day, and just read as much as you can, create as many characters as you can. The best way to get going is to take some classes with some legitimate people that teach this work. I'm actually have a class next weekend on the 12th for strawberry music. Is it strawberry? Oh my God, my memory is just you caught me on Labor Day. But Strawberry Hill? Is it Strawberry Hill? You can go on my Facebook, Richard Epcar Facebook, and there'll be a little thing on there about what you can do to sign up for the class. It's a virtual class like this, and we'll be doing that. And I would study with someone that you really trust, because there's a lot of people out there that are not trustworthy, and they're going to try to scam you and charge you an exorbitant amount of money, which you don't have to pay. you train, and you have to train hard like an athlete, doing the Olympics. You got to really work hard at it. Once you do that, then I would suggest you put together a demo, and demos should not be any longer than a minute. And you can do 4 different kinds. There's commercial VO, there's animation like what I do, there's trailers, and there's promos. And those are all specific kinds of voiceover, and you can study with different people or figure out what that's all about. And each one of those should not be longer than a minute. Now, when you get that compiled and you have somebody edit that for you, but make sure you're going to be competitive, because it's a very competitive business. You don't want to just record a bunch of crap and send it out there, because then no one will hire you. So make sure it's good and put together well, and then you start sending it out to some of the voiceover agents and see if you can get book an agent, and then they will start putting you out for different roles, and you'll audition for different stuff, and then hopefully if you do a good job, you'll get cast and stuff, and you just keep hopefully going on from there.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you guys are taking notes, because now you guys have all the tools necessary to become the next Richard Epcar. Now, guys, before we continue, now is your last chance to either message Visioncon your comments or questions, or put it in the live chat, because, ladies and gentlemen, we're in the plug zone. Richard Epcar, now is your opportunity to promote, plug, advertise, whatever you want to do. The floor is yours, sir.
The plug zone right here.
I love it.
Okay. First of all, I just want to thank all of you for tuning in, and I appreciate people have been very kind to me over the years, and this is one of the reasons I really miss not being able to go physically to conventions, because I love meeting you guys. I love hearing your stories. I love hearing how something that I was a part of helped you through a tough time, or you really enjoyed it, or you got to share that with your dad or your mom or whatever. And I love hearing those stories. It really makes me feel good. If you're not following me on Instagram, please do so. It's Richard Epcar on Instagram. Please follow me. I really appreciate it. And I put a lot of really fun stuff up there for you to check out. I try to be really good about answering your questions and stuff. If people ask me questions online, I try to be good about that and get back to them. As I said, I have a class coming up, and you can check that out on my Facebook page, Richard Epcar. And what else is going on? So much stuff. The new Lupin movie's coming out. Check out Ghost in the Shell 2045 on Netflix. So much stuff. I can't even remember it all. I know I've got a bunch of stuff on Netflix, a bunch of shows that are happening there. And, I'm happy to answer your questions now if you have questions for me.
Excellent. And like I said, all of those links, including Instagram and Twitter account as well, is going to be all in the live chat. If you're watching this live on Facebook, thank you, Marissa. Once again, you're the wind beneath my sails. Or if you're watching this later on YouTube, it's just going to be the description below. And with that, we're out of the plug zone and into the viewers' comments and questions. So like usual, guys, I'm going to do a 50-50 split between those who messaged Visioncon directly and those who put it in the live chat. So give me 1 sec to open things up. All right, and I'm going to start us off with Alana, who wrote in with kind of a fun thing. She first submitted a JoJo tattoo that she actually has. I don't know if you can see that. But you see that all right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And she also, she wanted me to show you that. And she also wanted me to ask you, are there any fond kind of unique memories that you have during your time in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure?
I just remember screaming a lot. A lot of screaming going on there.
Sure.
But it was fun. I had for a while, I had a goatee and mustache, and I was really starting to look like Joseph Joestar, which was kind of scary. All I needed was the hat, and I would be all set.
Well, Aaron wrote in and wanted to know, what's your favorite Disney villain that you want, I believe this is a Digimon question. What is your favorite Disney villain that you want Myotismon to team up with?
Oh, wow. That's a really good question. and I'd have to think about that for a second. There's so many. Disney has done so much stuff that's just wonderful. Wow, it would be a tough thing to, Disney also encompasses Star Wars now and Marvel, so it could be a lot of different. I could team up with what's his name from Marvel. Who was the guy with the glove at the end there?
Oh, Thanos.
Yeah, Thanos. I could team up with Thanos. That would be a pretty scary guy to team up with,
to say the least.
Although my Otis Mom would probably be trying to steal his glove the entire time,
Yeah, fair. I mean, hey, somebody's gotta. But
yeah.
Okay, so Christian wrote in and wanted to ask if you could say, as the Joker, snooping as usual, I see.
Snooping as usual, I see.
Just on a dime. Okay, Frankie wrote in and wanted to know, what's your favorite part of voicing Ansem?
I like Ansem because he's always calm. He never gets he never like starts screaming and yelling, which is for me is nice because they usually cast me as the screamers all the time. It's people always ask me what's the hardest part about voiceover, and honestly, for me, none of it's really hard per se. The hardest part is when you have to do 4 hours of screaming, and that's really tough, and it's tough on your instrument, and it's just tough to do that. So those are the hard ones. You get these Call of Duty games or things where you're just basically screaming the entire game, the entire role. Sure. And those are the hard ones. But, as far as the other stuff, I usually enjoy it. And I'm an actor. I'm not just a voice person. I'm an actor. So I really get into the character and I really, play the character. So it's, it's usually very enjoyable for me to do those parts.
Well, I intentionally didn't ask about Lupin the Third because I didn't want to steal it from this person who wrote in. Jared wanted to know, what was it like voicing Jigen from Lupin the Third?
I love Jigen, and here's another fun story. About 13 years ago, when we started doing Lupin the Third, the Red Jacket series, and there really wasn't any other Lupin in America at that time. I cast the show because I was directing it. I brought in everybody, and they never liked anybody that I brought in for Jigen. And I brought in, a ton of guys, and they just never liked the Jigen. So one day we were kind of trying to figure it out, and the producers looked at me and said, "Richard, why don't you go in there and read it? Let's see what you sound like." So I went in there and I read it, and I honestly didn't want to do it because I thought, well, it'd be better just to concentrate on the directing, not have to worry about playing a character, because usually almost every time I've directed a series or a show, they make me do a character in there. and I'm not like one of those guys that I like to hog, because there's some directors, they just cast themselves as everybody, and they love to hog the parts. I'm really not like that. I like to see the right person get the right part. So I went in and I read it, and I absolutely loved it. And I came out and they said, "We found our Jigen." And I'm so glad they did, because, honestly, he's been one of my all-time favorite characters to do. And I've been directing a bunch of the older Lupins recently for Discotech Media. And they've been, sending those out. And it just, every time we get this cast together, it's a joy. And we love working together. And I put together a great, great cast. And, it was funny. It's funny how this business is. Couple of years ago, they approached me from a studio to direct this show, and it turned out it was Lupin the Third Part 4. It was the Blue Jacket series. They had no idea that I had anything to do with it, or that I was, you would think it would make sense. They go, "Let's get the guy who did the Red Jacket series," because they don't do that. So it was just really a roll of the dice that I got to direct this second one, and my wife came in and joined me because they had such a short period of time to record stuff. So she was in one booth directing, I was in another. We would start at 9 o'clock in the morning, end at 11 o'clock at night, just to get this thing done, in time for their, when it was due. And it was insane. And we worked like crazy people. And that went on to Comedy Central and Adult Swim, I believe. And it was the #1 show. So after that, they brought in a Part 5. and they brought me in. That time they actually said, "Oh, let's get the guy who directed the 4." So they brought me in to direct that, and then we've been doing some other stuff. As I say, in this new movie that's coming out, this Lupin the Third, the first is going to go to theaters. So if you get a chance to see it in the theater, it really is beautiful. It's a beautifully animated feature film.
Yeah, look out for that, guys. And also in a similar vein with, continuing on with the Lupin the Third, William wrote in and wanted to know, though you voiced Jigen from Lupin the Third, you instead voiced Inspector Zenigata for Goemon's Blood Spray. How did the role change come about?
It actually happened when there's a cast in Texas that works for Funimation, and they've done a few of the Lupin the Third, I believe, the movies, and they got a series called Fujiko Mine, which was a really dark, cool looking series, but it was a very dark version of Lupin. And Chris Sabat was directing it, and he does the voice of Jigen for their stuff. And he was kind enough to say, I really want Richard to be part of this. So he asked me, he said, would you play Inspector Zenigata? I said, sure. They flew me out to Texas. They wined and dined me. Who could say no to that, right? So I did that. And then because of that, when I came back here, there was a couple of projects that Bang Zoom did. And they had the rights to, and I guess they had seen me do Zenigata and the other one, so they wanted me to do Zenigata. I said, I really do Jigen. That's my part, is Jigen. And they had me do Zenigata again. So I did them for a couple of their movies over here. But thankfully, when the Blue Jacket series and all that stuff started happening, I got to play Jigen again, and then they brought back the original cast again for the movie. So I was Jigen in that again. And the Zenigata in that Fujiko Mine was very different than the crazy loony Zenigata that we had in the Red Jacket series, or even in the Blue Jacket series. He was a lot more serious, a lot more rough and tough. So it was actually not a bad fit to do him. And it kind of worked out, I think, in a way. So, yeah. Listen, I can be part of that. I'm thrilled. It's kind of like the Batman universe. I'm the Joker. I'm Commissioner Gordon. I'm Solomon Grundy. It's like played a few different characters in that universe. So it's always nice to be part of that universe.
Right. Sure. Well, last question before we wrap things up, guys. Rachel wrote in and wanted to know, playing characters on either end of the morality spectrum, do you have a certain preference?
You know what? I'm a big old softy. I really do, and I have a big heart, and I cry at commercials and stuff like that. So, I really love playing the hero. I really do. I love playing the villain too. The villains are a lot of fun, and you get to chew the scenery and be evil and all that stuff. But honestly, I think I really do like playing the hero. It really is very cathartic for me in many ways. So. I do that. But, listen, I like playing it all. It's all fun. And you just jump in and you do it and you just become the character. And as I said, I've been very, very fortunate to play a lot of characters over the years and work with some incredible people and direct some incredible people. So I've been very, very fortunate.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's all the time we got. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys so much for tuning in for Visioncon Live, episode 27. Now, before we wrap things up, Richard, any final thoughts to leave us on?
Yes, I do have a final thought. First of all, once again, I want to thank you. If you appreciate the work I do, I appreciate that. Please join me on Instagram. And the most important thing I can say to you in this interview right now is please vote in November. Please vote. We really need to get out and vote.
Couldn't have said it better myself, guys. Make sure you guys all go out and vote. Use that right. And, the world's not going to get any better unless we, take an active approach to make it better. But with that said, guys, thank you so much again for tuning in for Visioncon Live, episode 27th. Make sure to tune in next time for September 13th for Visioncon Live, episode 28. featuring the one and only Jameson Price. Of course, he's Chad from Bleach, Sojiro from Persona 5, Tobirama Senju from Naruto, just to name a few. But until next time, I'm Zach, but much more importantly, this has been Richard Epcar. Make sure to check out the links down below, and always remember, guys, that life's better when you have friends to share it with.